All right. So welcome to Around the Table Yarns. This is Sweater Club. We are doing the Naima sweater, and I can show the first page of that. The Naima pullover in DK is a pattern from Ankestrick. And one of the reasons I like it is because Ankestrick puts this nice place for you to record all of your information about what size, what gauge you're getting, and needles and the yarn that you're using. And this pattern is for purchase on Ravelry. It's about $7.85. It calls for DK weight yarn. There is a version that uses a worsted weight. One of the things I think is nice about it, it has a twisted rib at the top with raglan shaping. It's worked top down, with the increases happening along the raglan shaping with this nice eyelet detail. The eyelet detail runs down the sweater and reappears throughout. So I think it's just a fun pattern. It is written in 3 shapes: a straight shape, an A-line shape, and a balloon shape that comes out and then back in. Somebody asked me, why would you do one or the other of the shapes? So I would say if you are a pear-shaped person, you should consider doing the A-line shape because it will skim your body. If you are not a pear-shaped person, if you have an equal sort of distribution between your shoulders and chest and hips, then the straight might be perfect for you. And I think if you are a particularly curvy or svelte or tall person, the balloon shape might look really nice. And somebody was like, why would anybody do the balloon shape? And I'm like, it looks really cute on my 24-year-old who's almost 6 foot tall and tiny. So that's just my thinking. But this pattern does have 3 different shapes. We do not have to deal with choosing a shape today. I just wanted to review that. So I'm not going to show any more of the pattern at this time. We worked on our gauge swatch, and I showed my 2 gauge swatches. I have to tell you, I went to do something this evening and I came back and my dog had taken my gauge swatches out of the bag and my yarn and my knitting out of the bag and was hopefully chewing on it. And I thought, I will kill you. Oh, did that just pop off again? I think there's a bad connection on my document camera because it's turning on and off. The light is going on. This is, there we go. I'll be quick before it gives out again. Okay, I did 2 swatches. I was really happy with my first swatch, but it was too small. When I measured across, it was less than 4 inches. It's 20 stitches, and I did it on a size 6, which is the recommended needle. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I think I'll do math. And then I thought, wait, I'll do what I tell my students. I'll do the swatch on the next size up and see if I get gauge and see if I like it. And I did, and I do. So I'm doing it on the size 7. So I'm using size 5s and 7s to get a 5 stitch to the inch gauge, which is what the pattern calls for. I started mine to work through and practice a little bit before we talked today. So I can tell you about the collar and what is going to happen with the collar. So today I'm planning to join 100 stitches in the round, some stitches in the round. The method of joining is the invisible or the jogless join. And so we're going to go through the jogless join. Here's my jogless join. I think that there's something wrong with my connection. So I'll see if I can get that to work again. And then I'm going to demonstrate where the markers go and get set and go through that first paragraph of information in the pattern. So I'm referring to the setup paragraph, the setup in the Naima pullover pattern, page 4. We're starting with the collar at the top of the page, and we're working through to the end of the collar. We won't finish the collar tonight, but we'll get it set up, and then it's just straight knitting. And that's our assignment for this month. So I just wanted to be really clear about what we're doing for this part of the assignment. Okay. Let's see if I can. It is the cord at the, I think this got dropped on its head. All right, unfortunately, I have a little technical difficulty with my document camera. It's not transmitting to my computer, and I do not have another option. So I'm going to just go over the information and the techniques of joining in the round and display it as best I can and talk through it as best I can. So my cat is trying to help me. It's very helpful. And I've got a knot. Sorry, I just can't work with knots. So what I'd like to do is talk through the first part of this pattern. And what I'd like you all to be doing is casting on in whatever method you choose. I do have videos that do work of the German short or the German twisted in sock club. I believe we demonstrated it for sock clubs cast on. My cat is back. No. All right. So the first thing I want to say is when you have all of the stitches cast on, there is a natural tendency for them to be twisted around the needle. And the first thing that you want to do in any working in the round situation is you want those stitches to be not twisted around the needle when you join in the round. You should be on your smaller needle. It should be 16 inches or less. So 16 inches is the typical size we do for a collar. And you should have one of these for your smaller needle, and you should have a 16-inch for your larger needle, because we will be going from the collar directly into the yoke without increasing too many stitches. So you're going to need a needle for both that is shorter. One of the things that I try to do is I like to scrunch my stitches onto the tip of each of the, God, had it with you, go, walking off with my yarn. I give up. I'm gonna tell my husband to come get the dog. All right, so I like to move the stitches onto the needle in both directions so that they're spread out more in the middle of the needle, but more compact on the tips, if that makes any sense. And then it's easy for me to look and see if there's a twist. And so I think there is right here. So I'm going to untwist that. So you're looking for the cast on ridge to be on one side of your circular needle. with the working yarn on the right-hand side, and I realize that that's backwards in the video, but your working yarn is always with the last stitch that you cast on. So it's attached to the last thing you did. And if you did a long tail cast on, then your tail is there too. If you did not do a long tail cast on, if you did the knitted cast on or the cable cast on, then your tail is attached to the first stitch. So where we are is with all of our stitches plus one as directed, and we have our tail in our right hand, and the first stitch we cast on is in our left hand. And we're going to put those two needle tips together, and we're going to slip the first stitch we made onto the needle that has the last stitch and the working yarn. So I'm just sliding it over to the other needle, and then I'm going to pull the stitch that is the last stitch we made over that stitch. And it can get a little bit loose there, so you can just tighten up on the working yarn to snug it up. And then we're transferring that back to the left-hand needle. So we move the stitch from the left needle to the right needle, took a stitch over it like we were casting off, and then we're transferring the stitch back to the left needle. Now it is on the left needle, the working yarn is attached to it, and we're going to place the first beginning of round marker, which my dog has walked off with. I like my markers to be color coded. That way I can sort of just look at them and see where I am in the pattern. So I definitely want my first marker to be a distinct color. I actually have the markers that I can show you on my my example one. So my first marker is always green for go. So there's my green marker. It's a little one. And then my next marker is red. And then I did orange and yellow, and then it gets back to green. So I know where I am in my round because the colors are changing as I go around. So I know when I get to the red one, that's the first one after the marker. And I know when I get to the orange one, that's the second one after the beginning of the round. And the yellow one is the third one. And then I'm almost back to the beginning of my round. So I really like to read my knitting. I like to look down and see where I am in the pattern. And so using colored markers is a way that I do that. So I'm going to get a marker out and put it on the beginning of my round. And then I want to just refer you back to the pattern. We've cast on and we've lost one stitch in that transfer. And so we are now down to the actual number of stitches we were supposed to cast on. And for all sizes, that is an even number of stitches. Now we're ready to place the eyelet markers. So I shouldn't put my markers anywhere. I should keep them right next to me. And I want you to pay particularly close attention to the setup round. You should mark your size number of stitches for each section of the setup round so that you don't lose track. There are a lot of numbers, there are a lot of sizes and a lot of numbers. So for example, if you're doing the first size, you should underline the first number that comes before the brackets everywhere that there is a set of brackets in this paragraph. And I'm saying that because one round is a repeat of a lot of different information, and it's visually easy to get lost in this round. So let's just talk through it. This is a round that divides your piece into 4 pieces, into 4 sections. So I'm going to show this again. I have the beginning of around here with the green marker, and then I go to the red marker, and you'll see that that's a short section. The short section is a sleeve section, and it's followed by a long section, and then another short section, that's the other sleeve, and then the other long section is the back. So you start with the sleeve, the front, the other sleeve, and then the back. And that's what we're setting the markers to identify. She writes the pattern very clearly and accurately, but she does one thing that people found confusing, and I want to just underline it and clarify it. At each section, she identifies that you're working in a rib. It's a twisted rib. The purl stitches are normal. The knit stitches are knit through the back of the loop. So all the way around, all of your stitches will be either knit through the back of the loop or purled. She starts with the knit one through the back loop, and then in parentheses, she puts the repeat of purl one knit through the back loop, which is 2 stitches. And she says, do that for 14 stitches. Please note that that does not include the first one. So that first knit one through the back loop is not in the 14 that you do subsequently, which means the total number of stitches that you will have in the first section is what's in the brackets, the number plus 1. Same thing for the second section. Same thing for the third section, same thing for the fourth section. The first section is the sleeve. It's short. It is the same number as the other sleeve, the same total number of stitches as the other sleeve. The front and the back have the exact same total number of stitches. The sleeve sections start with a knit one through the back loop. The body sections start with a purl one. It is not difficult to miss and do 2 knits in a row or 2 purls in a row when you're starting off doing a ribbing. Be very careful. Recheck your sections, because if you get off, it's right at the top of your sweater and you're going to want to fix it. So please, please, please check your ribbing, because once you've got it set, it's easy to follow. But in this first round, it is very hard to see. And I wish I could demonstrate that better than holding it up to you, but my document camera will not cooperate. So knitting through the back loop is exactly what it sounds like. You have both of your legs of your stitch are like a horseshoe. Ooh, on the black. Anybody here crashing? Something happening in the other room. I'll find out later. Okay, so a stitch has 2 legs. It looks like a horseshoe. I'm trying to hold this against my body and not kill my dog. And when you put the needle through it, the right leg should be closest to you. And that's whether you're looking at it from your side or my side. The right leg of the stitch should be closest to you. So when you knit into the back leg of the stitch, you're effectively twisting it and causing it to tighten. And the effect of that is really attractive. It makes your ribbing look beaded almost, or ridged almost. It's very stiff compared to regular ribbing. And so it holds up nicely, or it can hold up very nicely. And it has a very firm kind of texture. And that's because if you look closely, those stitches look like they've been crossed, and they have. The purl stitches appear normal. because they are not twisted. Again, my apologies for not being able to show things a little bit better. The first setup round, you're just placing markers. So you're going to work the whole round placing markers equally for the sleeves and the front and the back. So the sleeves will have the same number and it's a smaller number, and the front and the back will have the same number and it's a bigger number. And all of the numbers, I believe, are odd. So at the end of each section, you should count and have an odd number of stitches. And it should add up as written in the pattern. So I'm on page 4, and that is the second paragraph, the place eyelet markers. When you finish that round, you will have worked all the way around, but you will not have done the eyelets yet. Carol was on and she said that she didn't like the way the eyelets worked at the beginning. And so for the first part of the collar, she omitted them. That is a perfectly reasonable decision to make. So Carol went back and redid her collar without the eyelets. So as we work this pattern together, you'll have a chance to try on and look at each section. It can be easier to do that if you have a spare piece of smooth yarn and a darning needle or a barber cord to put your, can't get this over your head. So, you know, you'll put it on a piece of waste yarn and try it on. But I just want to bring up that altering aspects like where you start the eyelets is completely a personal choice, and there's no wrong answer for that. The eyelet round, like each round, starts with a sleeve section. So I just want to point out that the eyelets happen outside of the sleeve section. So here are my sleeve eyelets, and here's my sleeve section with sleeve section eyelets on either side. Those eyelets are worked outside of the sleeve section. So when you begin the round, your beginning of round, it's a sleeve section. You won't work an eyelet till you get to the second marker. When you get to the second marker, the two eyelets are in a direction, they involve a directional decrease. So you'll bring the yarn forward as though to purl. So you get to your marker, you slip the marker, bring the yarn forward as though to purl, and lay it over the top of the needle. And then knit the two stitches, the next two stitches as an SSK. And that means you slip the first stitch as though to knit, you slip the following stitch as though to knit, and then you put your left needle tip into the front of the two slip stitches. I don't think I can demonstrate that from here. I feel helpless. Then you would continue. So the yarn over lays across the top of the needle when you knit the two stitches together through the back loop. Then you continue in ribbing to the last two stitches of the front or the back section. And you'll knit the two together as a knit two together, not an SSK, and then yarn over before slipping the marker to the sleeve section. So the front and the back are the same, and they have the same eyelets starting and ending each of those sections. There's nothing really tricky about this except paying attention to where the eyelets are supposed to be. She's pretty straightforward. They're just outside of the sleeve sections. So they're pretty clear. And if you mark down which of your markers are your sleeve sections, it should be easy to keep track. The pattern then proceeds to rounds 2, 3, and 4. So the eyelet happens every fourth round, and you can see that. So if I hold this up, you can see that this eyelet is leaning up and away from the marker, and this eyelet is leaning down and away from its marker, which is here. My dog's getting into trouble. And my husband is not responding to my desperate plea. Okay. So in between the second, third, and fourth rounds that you're doing the eyelet on the neck, and I believe through the rest of the pattern. So just, it looks like a little pretzel cable, or a little lace cable. The eyelet section does. And the reason for that is the center stitch is not purled, it is knitted. So on either side, there's a knit one through the back loop, but in rows 2, 3, and 4, rounds 2, 3, and 4, when you come to the yarn over, or the stitch above the yarn over, you will knit that stitch, not purl, knit. So it'll be a knit one through the back loop, knit one for the eyelet, knit one through the back loop. It will not be a knit one through the back loop, purl one, knit one through the back loop. It's the only place that it changes in the round. So be aware as you're doing that, that's what's happening. There are no other increases. There's nothing else funky happening. It's just that every fourth round. And for the sake of our sanity, that's all we're doing until we get to the end of the collar. She recommends a collar length of 3.25 inches or 8 centimeters. That's a longish collar. If you don't want it that long, that's fine. It doesn't have to be 3.25. So please adjust as you prefer. I have on a sweater, and I think I have like a 2-inch, maybe an 1.5 inch collar. I've gone further because I'm trying to, I'm trying to abide by the letter of the pattern and do it as written, but this is getting a little on the long side for me. And I may be done. When you are done making it, you should end having completed rounds 1, 2, and 3, ready for a round 4. That's it.
So regardless of how long it's going to be, it still needs to end with 1, 2, 3, right?
Yeah, if you're making it shorter, then still end with round 3.
Okay. And could you say the yarn over once more again?
Yes.
Yeah.
So a yarn over, I saw people doing it different ways, and people have learned yarn overs different ways. This yarn over happens after a knit stitch. So your yarn is already in back, even though you're knitting through the back of the loop. The working yarn is still behind the needle on the back side. So bring it forward as if you were going to purl the next stitch.
Okay.
And then lay it over the top. And that creates the loop. So then when you work the decrease, whether it's an SSK or a knit 2 together, when you work that decrease and you pull the new stitch through the two stitches becoming one, the yarn over will be 1 stitch, and the decreased stitch will be the second one, making up for the 2 that you knit together.
Okay.
Was that clear as mud? I feel like I just did that backwards.
Okay, so I'm bringing it over as if to purl.
You're bringing it between the needles.
Is as if to purl. Then I'm yarning over. So then I'm going to be, the yarn's going to be in the back, so I can pick up whatever that is, the SSK or the knit 2 together, because my yarn's in the back already.
It will be laying over the top of the needle in the back.
Yes. Yeah, I got it over the top of the needle is where the yarn is. Yeah.
So the biggest problem that people have with that is that the yarn over, especially at the end, slips over the marker and
Right.
becomes a stitch on the
On the other
left
side.
side of the marker
Yes.
instead of the right side of the marker. And you just have to tell that stitch who's
Pay attention.
boss
Yes. Okay.
and move it back to the right side of the marker.
Okay. So I have had that problem, so I know about that problem.
Yeah, you just have to. So one way to make that stay better is to have an irregularly shaped marker, like a triangle or a square or a star or something that will kind of be hard for the yarn over to slip easily over. So if you've ever seen oddly shaped stitch markers, this is a good use for them.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sometimes ones that dangle are also harder for the yarn overs to get over. But I like particularly triangular ones. If you ever see the triangular markers, this is a good thing for them, for them. And otherwise you just have to boss the stitch around. Any other questions? Okay. I don't know how we did on time. Yeah, pretty good. My apologies for the technical difficulties, and we will have a working document camera by the time I do this again. And if I need to repeat any of this, I'm happy to next month. Please send us a message or say something now if you need it. If you're having difficulties with it, please let us know. And then the only other thing is the store will be closing Wednesday at 5 and not reopening until we have moved into the new space. The new space is in the same building facing the opposite direction. And we anticipate to be moved in by the following week without any trouble. So keep your fingers crossed for us. And now he's got a squeaking toy.
So I actually have one more question. You said
Yep.
try it on. So is that like try on to make the collar, to check the collar length? Is that what you're suggesting?
You could, absolutely.
Okay, so that's like before the setup ground for the yoke even. Like
yeah, we are not going past.
Right. We're going down to change the shorter main needle, which is at the bottom or 2/3 the way on the first column, correct?
We are not changing to the shorter main needle.
Right.
Before that's what we're going to start with next month.
Time. Good. Okay.
And part of that is just, I think we should do the yoke together. Unless you are confident and comfortable starting and going ahead. Again, this club is not, there's no, you're not paying me. So if you want to move ahead, if you're comfortable moving ahead, please move at your own pace. We will be meeting and going over each of these steps as we sort of laid it out on the website. I haven't done this before. I anticipate no problems having a month between each of the steps we've done. I realize these are the shortest ones at the beginning. You'll have more homework next time. Okay. Everybody, any other questions? Squeak, squeak.
Not really a question, but did you want to see? I can show what I did on mine if you want.
Absolutely.
With the halfway. Because sure. Also, as a caveat, I actually purled on the rib. I purled through the stitch instead of the knit because I just couldn't bring myself to knit through a purl stitch on the ribbing. It was just me. I was just cringing doing it. So the holes are going to be a lot bigger on the neck. But this is what this is the halfway. I did this for 8 centimeters, and 4 centimeters are without the holes, eyelets, and then the last 4 are eyelets to the purl stitch.
I'm going to pin you.
Pin me for a second. Okay, like that. There we go.
There you go. So you did some without, and then you continued, and you've continued into your yoke.
Yes, and the bottom, the reason for the bigger holes is that I purled because those are purl stitches, and it just seemed to make more sense to me at the time to purl, even though it said knit. I knew what I needed to do, but I couldn't bring myself to do it.
So the difference between that and what you've got is that the knit stitches create a little, it almost looks like a little wave in between
knit.
them.
I did knit down here. I did knit eyelets down here.
Wonderful.
I've only done a couple of them, but they're much smaller. But if you want a more distressed look, it was just me and ribbing. I see purl and I say, yes, yes, but, I did a but. So I purled through here. That was just me. But this is half of the 8, and that's the other half of the 8 centimeters. Just to say what I was doing on this. And I don't mind it. It's just that this all the way up was just a little too wobbly. It looked too distressed to me. So that's why I ripped it out the first time.
Are you getting gauge?
Yes, on 3s and on 5s. I'm getting gauge on 5s. This is bamboo pop. Okay. So it says 22 on 4s, and I got 20 on 5s. But these are 3s. These are US 3s for the neck, and it will fit on I have a long neck. I'm 6 feet tall, so I have a long neck. I got space. Okay. So anyway, hope that helps.
Wonderful.
If not, thank you for sharing.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your alteration. Any other questions? Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for participating in Sweater Club. I look forward to seeing you again next month. I don't even know what day. Because it's the same day, isn't it? It's March 20th, because March and February has 28 days this year. Okay, so next time it's on March 20th. It will be at 6 o'clock Eastern time again. And please let me know if you have any questions or troubles in between. Thanks. Maureen, what do we do? Good.
Bye.
Bye.